In September 2013, on the Seward Highway in Alaska, a retired science teacher from Long Island watched his odometer roll past 3 million miles. Not kilometers, miles. Irv Gordon was driving the same red 1966 Volvo P1800 he bought new for $4,150, and Guinness World Records had already certified it as the highest mileage personal car in history. However, when people asked Irv for his secret, he never mentioned luck, and he never mentioned magic Swedish steel. He talked about habits. Small, boring, repeatable habits that the average owner skips and the 1% never do. By the time he passed away in 2018, that P1800 had covered around 3.25 million miles, which works out to more than 130 laps of the planet in a single car. That matters for you, because Volvo longevity is not a myth built on one man. The old red block engines in the 240s and 740s, especially the B230, earned a reputation as some of the most durable four-cylinders ever bolted into a family car. And you can still find them running past 300,000 miles as daily drivers. The skeptics will tell you the modern cars are different. Turbocharged T5s and T6s, the compact Drive-E engines, an XC90 stuffed with electronics. Too complex to last, they say. The 1% of owners quietly proving them wrong follow 20 specific habits, and we are counting them down from 20 to 1. The final habit is the one Irv Gordon swore by above everything else, and it might be the cheapest thing on this entire list. Number 20. Respect the turbo twice per drive. Almost every modern Volvo is turbocharged, and that little turbine can spin at well over 100,000 revolutions per minute while glowing hot. For the first 10 minutes after a cold start, the 1% drive gently, keeping the revs low until the oil reaches full temperature, because cold oil flows poorly and a cold turbo bearing fed with thick oil wears fast. Then they do the same thing in reverse. After a hard motorway run, they take the last mile easy or let the engine idle for 30 seconds before shutting down, so oil keeps circulating through the turbo instead of cooking into carbon inside the bearing housing. Modern water-cooled turbos are more forgiving than the old ones, but heat soak still kills them slowly. 2 gentle minutes per drive can be the difference between a turbo that lasts 250,000 miles and one that fails at 90,000 and costs $2,000 to replace. Taxi drivers have known this for generations, which is part of why high-mileage diesels, with careful owners, keep turning up with original turbos. Number 19. Change the oil at half the marketing interval with the exact spec. Volvo's official schedule says every 10,000 miles or once a year. That number was written with lease customers and low running costs in mind, not a 500,000 mile goal. The 1% change oil every 5,000 miles or 8,000 kilometers, and they obsess over specification. Older white block engines want a full synthetic meeting the ACEAA 5/B5 standard, typically 0W30. The Drive-E engines from 2014 onward require Volvo's own VCCRBS 0-2AE spec in 0W20. And pouring generic oil into one of those is how you feed a turbocharged direct injection engine the wrong diet for years. An independent shop will do it for $80 to $130, and Irv Gordon went even further, changing his oil roughly every 3,500 miles for 50 years. You do not need to match him. You just need to stop believing the 10,000-mile number was written for a car you plan to keep forever. Cheap insurance either way, But clean oil cannot save you from the next habit. And this one is pure Volvo. Number 18. Service the PCV oil trap before it chokes. Volvo routes crankcase vapors through an oil trap, a plastic breather box bolted to the front of the block, and over roughly 100,000 miles it slowly clogs with sludge. When it blocks completely, pressure builds inside the engine and starts pushing oil past every seal it can find, including the rear main seal buried between the engine and transmission. FCP Euro, the parts supplier that has built half its Volvo catalogue around this problem, calls the breather box one of the most neglected services on these cars. The 1% test it with a simple trick: a rubber glove stretched over the oil filler with the engine running. If the glove inflates, pressure is building. They replace the trap and hoses around every 100,000 miles, usually $400 to $900 depending on how much intake plumbing has to come off. Ignoring it turns a maintenance item into blown seals and a contaminated clutch. Number 17. Treat the timing belt like a hard deadline. Many Volvo engines with timing belts are interference engines, which means if the belt snaps, the pistons and valves occupy the same space at the same moment, and the engine destroys itself in about 1 second. The 1% never negotiate with the interval. Belt, tensioner, idlers, and the water pump, while everything is already apart. Every 100,000 miles or 10 years, whichever comes first, because rubber ages even in a garaged car. Expect $600 to $1,000 at an independent shop. Compare that with $4,000 or more for a replacement engine, and the math ends the conversation. And if you think that is the biggest lie of omission in your service book, wait until you hear what the transmission paperwork says. Number 16. Change the lifetime transmission fluid. Volvo's Ischen automatics are officially sealed for life, with no scheduled fluid change at all. Meanwhile, Ischen, the Japanese company that actually builds these gearboxes, publishes its own guidance recommending regular fluid service. The 1% side with the people who made the transmission. A simple drain and fill every 40,000 to 60,000 miles keeps fresh fluid protecting the clutch packs and valve body, and it costs around $250 to $400. Lifetime fluid really means the fluid lasts the lifetime of the transmission. It just never mentions that the fluid gets to decide how long that lifetime is. Owners who service these boxes see them sail past 200,000 miles. Owners who trust the Sealed for Life sticker often meet a $4,000 rebuild instead. If you have a manual gearbox, you are not excused either. Fresh gear oil every 60,000 miles or so is even cheaper, and hardly anyone does it. Number 15. Service the Haldex, the part of your AWD you forgot exists. If your Volvo is all-wheel drive, a Haldex coupling on the rear axle decides when the rear wheels get power. And it has its own small supply of fluid, with a filter on several generations. The service interval is short, roughly every 3 years or 40,000 miles. And on some generations, the filter hides behind the pump, which is exactly why so many cars never get it done. Neglected fluid clogs the pump screen, the pump strains, and eventually the whole coupling fails, well over $1,500 on most models. The service itself runs about $150 to $250. The 1% book it together with the transmission fluid, so neither ever gets forgotten. Number 14. Use the coolant Volvo specifies and nothing else. Modern Volvos run the brand's own VCS coolant formula, and it does not play nicely with whatever universal jug is on sale at the petrol station. Mixing incompatible coolants can thicken into gel, clog narrow passages, and quietly corrode the water pump and heater core from the inside. The 1% keep a small bottle of the correct coolant in the garage for top-ups. They investigate any drop in the level instead of just refilling, and they flush the system on schedule, roughly every 5 years. A proper flush costs around $150 to $250, A heater core replacement, buried behind the dashboard, can cost 6 times that in labour alone. Number 13. Be honest about fuel and injectors. Direct injection engines like the Drive-E family are efficient, but they build carbon, and cheap fuel with a weak detergent package makes it worse. The 1% buy fuel from stations with strong additive standards, top-tier rated in North America, reputable branded fuel in the UK and Europe, and they skip the miracle additives. The honest reality on injector cleaners is that only quality products based on PEA, polyethylamine, actually dissolve deposits, and even those are maintenance, not magic. One bottle every few thousand miles through a tank is plenty. For stubborn carbon on intake valves, a professional cleaning at around $400 to $600 every 80,000 or so miles beats any liquid promise on a shelf. Number 12. Drive like the car has to last, because it does. Irv Gordon drove smoothly for over 5 decades, and mechanics who inspected his P1800 kept finding original parts still in service. Smooth is the entire trick. Gentle acceleration, braking early instead of hard, slowing down for speed bumps and potholes, not loading the drivetrain until it is warm. Every violent input sends a shock through engine mounts, bushings, CV joints, and the transmission. This habit is genuinely free, and it may save more money than any other single item here because it slows the wear rate of the whole car at once. Just do not baby it into an early grave. A warmed-up Volvo enjoys a proper motorway run, and as you will see at number 2, it actually needs one. Smooth also does not mean slow. It means no sudden inputs, which is a driving style you can hold at any legal speed. Number 11. Fight rust like a Swede. These cars were engineered in a country that salts its roads for months every winter, and Volvo's factory corrosion protection is good, but a 500,000-mile car will die of rust long before its engine quits if you let the underbody rot. The 1% rinse the underside and wheel arches through winter, especially after salted roads, and they have the underbody inspected once a year. Many go further with cavity wax treatments from brands like Denitrol or Crown, roughly $150 to $400 every few years, which creep into the seams and box sections where rust starts. Sheet metal repair is some of the most expensive work in any body shop. Rinsing salt off is nearly free. Number 10. Keep the service history bulletproof. Volvo maintains digital service records, and every visit to a dealer or connected workshop gets logged against the car. The 1% make sure every single service lands in that system, and they keep a folder of receipts for everything else, down to a set of wiper blades. Halfway through this list is the right moment to say it, because this is exactly the kind of thing this channel exists for. We are brand new. This is one of our first videos, and if you want a weekly deep dive into making Volvos last, subscribing now costs you nothing and tells us to keep going. Back to the records. A documented car gets diagnosed faster, sells for more, and never gets a timing belt skipped because nobody could remember when it was last done. Number 9. Take the software updates. A modern Volvo is a computer network wearing a body, and Volvo continuously releases software updates for the engine, the transmission, and the battery management systems. Some fix rough shifting, some improve charging behavior. Newer cars get many of them over the air, but plenty still require a workshop visit with dealer-level equipment. The 1% ask for available updates at every service, instead of assuming it happens automatically. An outdated transmission calibration can shift harshly for years, physically wearing clutch packs when the fix was sitting on a server the whole time. Number 8. Go easy on the first 1,000 miles, and after every major repair. Volvo's own manuals have long advised restraint during the first 1,500 kilometers, roughly the first 1,000 miles, of a new engine's life. Varied revs, no full throttle, no towing, no long stretches at one fixed speed. That is when piston rings seat against cylinder walls, and how they seat influences oil consumption for the next several 100,000 miles. The 1% apply the same logic after a rebuilt engine, a new turbo, or a replacement transmission. A component's first week decides a lot about its last one. Number 7. Stay obsessive about tyres and alignment. Wheel alignment drifts with every pothole and curb strike, and a misaligned car does not just eat tyres, it quietly overloads wheel bearings, bushings and steering components for tens of thousands of miles. The 1% check tyre pressures monthly, stick to the load and speed ratings Volvo specifies, and pay for an alignment check once a year or after any hard impact, around $100 to $180. One worn wheel bearing costs more than several years of alignment checks, and on an AWD car, mismatched tyre wear can even strain that Haldex unit you just learned about at number 15. Number 6. Fix small leaks while they are still small. A weeping valve cover gasket is a $150 job. Left alone, that same seep drips onto the alternator below it, and now it is an $800 job. A slow coolant leak costs a hose clamp and a Saturday morning. But run the engine low on coolant for a month and you are shopping for a head gasket. The 1% walk around the car regularly, glance under it on the garage floor, and treat any new drip, smell, or fluid drop as an appointment, not a curiosity. Cars that reach 500,000 miles are not cars that never leaked. They are cars where nothing was ever allowed to leak for long. Number 5. Shelter the car from thermal cycling. Every deep freeze and every baking afternoon makes seals, plastics and rubber expand and contract, and those cycles add up over decades. A garage keeps the car tens of degrees closer to stable, which means gentler cold starts, longer battery life, less condensation inside the engine, and interior plastics that do not crack at year 15. No garage? Even a carport or a breathable cover helps, and parking out of direct summer sun protects the paint and the dashboard. Irv Gordon garaged his P1800 its whole life, and the survival of that car's original interior was not an accident. Number 4. Buy the right battery and tell the car about it. If your Volvo has start-stop, it needs an AGM or EFB battery, not the cheapest flooded battery on the shelf. And on modern Volvos, the job is not finished when the terminals are tight, because the car's energy management software tracks the battery's age and condition. A new battery should be registered to the car with diagnostic equipment, so the charging strategy resets. Otherwise, the system keeps charging as if the old, tired battery was still fitted, and the new one ages prematurely. Done properly, expect $250 to $400. It matters more than it sounds, because a weak battery in a modern Volvo produces phantom electrical faults that owners spend fortunes chasing. Number 3. Keep the drains clear. This one is free, and it saves electronics. Every Volvo has drainage channels, sunroof drains in the pillars, the scuttle drain under the wiper cowl where leaves collect, drains in the doors and tailgate. When they clog, water backs up and finds its way inside, and on a modern car, the floor is exactly where control modules live. A blocked drain has flooded footwells and killed thousands of dollars of electronics on cars that were otherwise perfect. The 1% clear leaves from the cowl every autumn and pour a cup of water through the sunroof corners twice a year to confirm it exits behind the front wheels. 10 minutes, twice a year, $0. Number 2. Feed it highway miles, not cold little errands. A 2-mile trip to the shop is the hardest duty a car can do. The engine never warms up, moisture and unburned fuel build up in the oil, the battery never recovers the charge the starter took, and the exhaust rusts from the inside. Irv Gordon's 3 million miles were overwhelmingly long, warm, steady highway miles, and that is a huge part of why the car survived them. The 1% batch their errands into one loop, and they give the car a proper 20-minute run at speed every week or two, enough for the oil to fully warm and burn off contamination. Warm miles are cheap miles. It is the cold ones that age a car. Which is why a motorway commuter with 200,000 miles is often in better mechanical health than a city runabout with 60,000. When you shop used, that logic works in reverse too. High miles with highway history beats low miles of cold starts almost every time. And number 1. Find one independent Volvo specialist and never let go. This is the master habit, the one that makes all 19 others actually happen. A specialist who works on Volvos every day has VIDA-level diagnostics, knows that the breather box clogs, knows the ice-in fluid myth, knows which noises are nothing and which are next month's breakdown. Because they see your car twice a year, every year, they catch problems while the fixes are still cheap, and independent labour rates usually undercut the dealer by a wide margin. Irv Gordon put it simply in Volvo's own press release: follow the owner's manual and find a mechanic you trust. He did both for 47 years with one car, and it carried him 3 million miles. Ask around your local Volvo Owners Club, read the recommendations in enthusiast forums, and once you find that shop, stay loyal. A mechanic who has watched your car age for a decade will spot trouble that a stranger with a scan tool never could. So that is the full playbook. Warm turbos, honest oil intervals, a clean oil trap, belts and fluids on schedule, salt rinsed off, records kept, and one specialist who knows your car by name. None of it is glamorous, and that is exactly the point. Because the gap between a Volvo that dies at 150,000 miles and one that cruises past 500,000 is not luck. It is 20 small decisions repeated for years. 500,000 miles sounds impossible until you remember a schoolteacher on a schoolteacher's salary did 6 times that in a car built when petrol cost pennies. Your XC60 or V70 has better metallurgy, better oil, and better rust protection than his P1800 ever did. What it needs from you is the same thing his car got, which is an owner who shows up. This channel is brand new, and it is being built for exactly one kind of person: the owner who wants their Volvo to outlive every car payment on the street. Buying guides, hidden weaknesses, model deep dives, real cost breakdowns, every week. If that sounds like your garage, subscribe now while the channel is small enough to reply to every comment. And speaking of comments, here is the first question we are asking this community. What Volvo do you drive, and how many miles or kilometers is it carrying right now? Drop the model and the number below. Somewhere in these comments is a future 3 million mile story, and it genuinely might be yours.